how the Dallas Mavericks have turned a slow start around to become one of the hottest teams in the association. Really appreciate you joining us here on DLLS Sports here on YouTube for DLLS Mavs. I'm your Mavs host, Kevin Gray. Appreciate you joining us here. Joining me on the show today, you can, of course, find him on the All NBA podcast with his guy, Adam Mares, hosting the All NBA podcast for the ALLCITY Network. And, of course, studio analyst and game analyst for ESPN. He is Tim Legler. Tim, what's going on?
Kevin, what's up, man? I know you're in a better mood since the last time we talked because your team is rolling right now, playing great, reminding people who they are. Like Mufasa told Simba, remember who you are. They're remembering it right now. And I'm going to credit myself, Kevin. I'm going to give myself credit because I was hard on Luka. I was challenging Luka specifically. And look, they were winning games while he was out. That's when this thing started to turn. And I'm not saying they were better without him, but give them credit. They rose to the occasion when he went out, and he was struggling at that time. And they win games, get some momentum. He comes back, arguably his two best games of the year back to back. And I don't think it's a coincidence. I think his legs got some needed rest because I thought the first 3 weeks represented sort of training camp for him. He didn't look like he was in top shape at the start of the season. He had some nagging injuries. He sits down for a short period of time. Now that like initial soreness and fatigue that you have when the season starts kind of goes away, but you're still in much better shape than you were at the start of the year, and the nagging injuries are gone. And it's shown the last two games. His efficiency was something I was waiting to see all year, and he finally gave it to him. And now you look up, they're absolutely rolling, and they've got a number of really quality wins here over the last 3 weeks.
They do. And for those who are watching this, we are having this conversation prior to the Mavericks taking on the Washington Wizards, as the Mavericks, of course, are 9-1 in their last 10 games. Tim, back on November 15th, this team was 5-7, 12th in the Western Conference, capping off what was a terrible 4-game losing streak with that bad loss in Utah. But since then, have only lost one time since mid-November, and a team that's now a season high 6 games above 500 at 14-8 as we have this conversation, have gone from 12th in the West to 3rd during that time. And, oh, by the way, boys and girls, clinched a spot in the NBA Cup to take on the Oklahoma City Thunder next week for a chance to get to Vegas. For you, Tim, what has been the common thread in this turnaround for Dallas over the last 10 games that's seen them be playing so well right now?
I mean, their offense is just firing on all cylinders. It's amazing because I thought early in the year, I did think Luka was a little bit of an anchor for them around their ankles because he has the ball so much. His usage rate is so high, and he was having just really inefficient nights. And it was there as a result, their offense was sort of stuck in the mud, and it wasn't connected. It was disjointed. And I think he also was going through like, hey, man, like I got to get myself going. And as a guy that's got the ball and is setting the table for other people, that jump ball goes in the air and you're thinking about getting yourself going. That's not necessarily the way to promote the type of offense and the ball movement and the flow that you want. They've got that now. Like they're just, everybody seems comfortable with their role. Everybody's contributing. They're getting really a lot of depth in terms of who is contributing on a nightly basis. And the turnaround has primarily been on that end of the floor. And that to me is what ultimately they're going to be. Look, they were a very good defensive team last year after they made the acquisitions of Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington. Like the metrics, the second half of the year or after the All-Star game were top 5 in the league, what they were doing defensively. They made some changes to their team. Derrick Jones Jr. leaves the team and you bring in Clay, like the identity changes a little bit. But beginning of the year, their defense was clouded by their offensive struggles. Now their defense can start to play better because their offense is better. You're forcing teams to take the ball to the net more. That means you're setting up your half-court defense more often. And that's when they're going to be really good and really effective. So I think the two things are connected. Their offense has been a lot better. As a result, their defense is going to continue to creep up because beginning of the year, I didn't think their offense was giving their defense much of a chance.
A team in Dallas over their last 10 games, number 4 in the NBA in offensive rating and number 8 in the NBA in defensive rating. They've been flirting around that top 10 in both offensive and defensive rating throughout the course of the year. And now these wins are coming and backing up what we have seen from a numbers perspective, for this team. And you started to touch on it a little bit in terms of Luka Doncic. He's got 36 points in the game against Portland, drops another 37 against the Memphis Grizzlies. His legs seem under him. For you, what have you noticed physically about him continuing to get better, and what does that mean for the long-term success of this team now that it feels like he's getting into the kind of rhythm both offensively, and he even had 4 steals in the game against Memphis the other night as well in that game?
He just looks stronger. And when he's getting off the ground and getting into his step back move and getting into his when he gets downhill and he's got somebody, on his hip or on his shoulder, which, he does all the time, because it's not like he's got blow by speed. So typically when he gets downhill, somebody is still there, like in his space. He's not affected by that because he's so strong. But when his legs aren't as strong, those shots end up being more difficult, challenged, off balance. They don't look like they're the shot that he wants. And that's what Luka Doncic is all about. He's so patient offensively in getting what he wants at the end of those drives, at the end of the step back, the mid-range, whatever it may be. I don't think he was getting that earlier in the year. I thought he was settling for a shot half a count before he wanted to, because he didn't have the leg strength and conditioning. He wasn't fresh enough. Maybe he was dealing with some stuff that was bothering him from a pain perspective. That looks to me like it's gone now. He has looked like Luka at his best the last couple of games. Strong, decisive, getting off the floor. The other thing that happens, Kevin, when you aren't necessarily feeling great with your legs for whatever reason, injury or conditioning, whatever, when you don't time your release of the basketball the same every time. You just don't, because you're not getting off the ground the same height on every jump because your legs aren't firing. He looks now like the ball's coming off his fingertips in rhythm because he feels stronger. So the ball and the timing of the release coincides with what your jumping should be on that particular shot. He wasn't doing that at the beginning of the year. I think it was more like random acts every time he shot the ball. Now it looks like Luka at his best. So give him credit. He came back from this and he was determined that he had to be better, and he has been great.
Looking much more fluid on both ends of the floor, especially offensively, which obviously is a good sign for this Mavericks team. And Tim, he's been getting a lot of help and was getting help from his teammates when he wasn't on the floor, particularly PJ Washington. When you look at him, when he's done over the last 2.5 weeks, averaging over 15 points per game, shooting over 49% from the field, shooting nearly 53% from the three-point line, and oh, by the way, getting nearly 10 rebounds per contest as well, highlighted by what was a 27-17 game against Oklahoma City on the road. What has impressed you most about the development of PJ Washington and what he's been able to start to do, kind of being a Swiss Army knife for this team with his versatility on both ends of the floor?
Well, one of the things that's impressed me was just, this is not a guy that you would categorize as like, a high volume scorer. PJ Washington is more, and I love him. He's a jack of all trades, right? He does a little bit of everything for you, but he's not the type of guy that you're counting on necessarily for like supplemental offense or a certain number every night to give us a chance to win. It's not really who he is. So guys that are in that category that have a slow start to the year, which he did, and then he had, was out and then came back. Very rare you see a guy turn it around like that quickly offensively to where now he's been this consistent mainstay for them and what he's given them, because you're always going to count on the defense. You're always going to count on the awareness and the versatility and all of the things that he does to help you win. But now you just look at the production. It's one thing for those guys to show up every night and be who they are. That's enough to help you win. But now when you start like penciling in certain benchmarks from a production standpoint, now like you look at Dallas differently. With what you're already dealing with Luka and Kyrie, you got the two-headed monster in the middle and the pressure they put on you at the rim. You've got spacers and shooters out there that are specialists. Now you got this guy that's sort of in the middle, does a little bit of everything, but he's giving you this kind of production. Very rare to see like a role player start the year that slowly and then find this kind of a rhythm the way that he has. And I think it makes Dallas, when he's playing like this, Kevin, more of a legitimate title threat when you watch them play. Because it wasn't enough to go, Luka's spectacular, Kyrie. Is that enough to carry a team to a title? Like those two guys being great every night, or you need more. And PJ Washington as like that next scorer now, that's been very impressive for me because it's not really necessarily in his wheelhouse, but he's added it now with this team to give them that third scoring option that's been very consistent.
And he's been fantastic for this team, getting more and more confidence night in and night out about his ability to be a little bit of a playmaker, but as you mentioned, kind of a Swiss Army knife guy that can do a little bit of everything, passing the ball really well as well when it comes to PJ Washington. And Tim, one of the things that Mavericks fans have been really excited about is the depth of this team. It continues to flourish, it feels like, over the last couple of weeks, led by a guy like Najee Marshall, who in 3 NBA Cup games, averaging over 16 points per game, helping them get what was a really crucial win in Denver when he dropped 26 in that game. What are you thinking about as far as how good the depth is of this team, and where do you rank the Mavericks as far as one of the deepest teams in the league based off of the quality play of Najee Marshall, Quentin Grimes, Spencer Dinwiddie, who's been really playing well as well? Where do you rank them as some of the deepest teams in the league?
I mean, they're one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the league in terms of depth. They got 11 guys averaging 15 minutes or more. It's very difficult to do that. Golden State has been doing that. That was obviously, Steve Kerr came out and said he was going to play 12. People kind of snickered, like, you can't do that in the NBA. You play 12 guys, nobody's in rhythm. Like, that's kind of how you feel about that. He's not been 12 consistently every night. It's been more like 11. And Dallas is kind of doing that too. And what that ultimately means is you're not overburdening anybody. And that's very important in a marathon year. And this team isn't expecting to have a good year or make the playoffs. They're expecting to win a championship. And their goal should be to win a championship. Their belief in themselves should be to do that. It's a long year. And when you have more guys contributing and eating up minutes and being productive and accepting roles and thriving, it just makes Jason Kidd's job. It's more difficult on a given night to push the right buttons because you have a lot of options there. But at the end of the day, it's going to make his job easier because I think your team is fresher overall. And that's very important in an 82-game season, particularly when you're expecting a 2-month run at the end of it.
And they're trying to win an NBA Cup as well. I want to get your quick thought on your overall thoughts on the Cup tournament itself. The format, obviously, is something that a lot of folks have a lot of conversations about, but for the most part, it feels like players really enjoy this tournament, finding the competitive elements of it. What have your thoughts been about the tournament and the way that players have responded to not just the games themselves, but what the tournament actually means for them?
Yeah. Well, first I want to give the players credit because they bought in, and I was skeptical when they announced this last year, and I didn't know, I know why they did it. The regular season has been diminished in terms of importance in a lot of ways because of really load management and injuries and players taking a long time to come back from injuries. And as a result, a lot of the games you expect to see on a nightly basis aren't materializing because certain guys are out a lot. So they wanted to see if they could somehow elevate the importance of these early regular season games for the networks, for the fans, for the sponsors, right? We want a better product. And I was skeptical. Like, is that really going to make guys buy in? And yet here they were, man. And it's like Draymond Green said, I believe, in the beginning, like, you put a bunch of alphas and professional athletes, and I don't care what the prize is. You put even a little trophy you got at the local trophy shop for $8 and you put it on a table. Guys want to win it. And look, money, yeah, that's nice. I don't think the money was any incentive. I think it was like just the competitiveness of winning. And they bought in last year. They've bought in this year. The games were great. I expect this. I love all 4 of these first round matchups. I think you can make an argument that any one of those games could be the best game of the first round, but it looks like OKC Dallas on paper probably is going to get that claim. And I'm going to go out there on a limb and I say, I think the winner of that game wins the whole cup. That's how important I think that game is. But all 4 matchups are compelling, and you got 7 of the 8 teams coming in absolutely red hot. And I'm talking about like on fire hot. You got Milwaukee 9 out of 11, Orlando 13 out of 15, the Knicks 8 out of 10, Atlanta 5 in a row, OKC 5 out of 6, Dallas 9 out of 10, Houston 10 out of 13. I mean, you're talking red hot. And then you got the Warriors who are struggling at 5 straight losses, but had a great start to the year. So you've got those 7 teams are 60 and 11 in their last 71 games. You're talking about the hottest of the hot coming together that should give us an epic quarters, semis, and then eventually a final. And I said, again, I think the winner, Dallas OKC, has a great chance to win the whole thing.
Yeah, to underscore that point, 3 out of the 4 teams on the West side are the top 3 teams in the Western Conference. We're talking about Oklahoma City, Dallas, and Houston, the way that they've been playing, and obviously Golden State there as well. So it should be a fun tournament as we get to the knockout stages, the semifinals, and hopefully for Dallas fans, an opportunity to be in Vegas for the NBA Cup. Tim, as always, my man, I appreciate your time. Mavericks fans are excited about what this team is doing. I'm sure, look, the way that you were able to look at this team and evaluate them and what they've done, it's been fun to watch this team start to put it all together and look forward to more pleasant conversations when it comes to this Mavericks team. So as always, my man, thank you so much.
Anytime. Appreciate you having me, Kevin.
Appreciate y'all joining us here on DLLS Sports here for DLLS Mavs. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to us here at DLLS Sports, and check out the DLLS Mavs podcast every single day here on DLLS Sports. My name is Kevin Gray. We'll talk to you later. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.